Thank you, Dan. My remarks are to you, the citizen patriots who've come out, those of you from York County and the surrounding communities, some from other states, some even from other countries. You're here today and be part of a historical event. We are one of the few, yea, maybe only the only site like this where we have a Memorial Day service at noon, and we appreciate your attendance. I have several people that we'd like to introduce that are here, and I'd ask them to stand and acknowledge the audience as I call their name, please. The Honorable Chad Green. Okay. Mr. Neil Morgan. Representing the 93rd District, which includes parts of York County, we have the Honorable Delegate Michael P. Mullen. And we especially welcome our service personnel, those that are active and retired. I'd like to acknowledge Captain Van from the Coast Guard Training Center. I'd also like to acknowledge Master Chief Petty Officer Mike Jones, Master Chief of Naval Weapons Station. All of our guests are special, but today these two are extra special. We have with us two living members of the greatest generation, and I would ask them to stand when I call the name. Mr. Grundy, the Marine Corps lead. Thank you, sir. Hoorah! And I'd like to introduce to you Senior Chief Gunner's Mate, Ray Dooley, right here in York County. He's 98 years young. Ray participated in the Battle of Midway and was on the USS Vincennes during World War II. He's accompanied today by his daughter, Nancy Hawkins, and we appreciate, Nancy, you being with your dad today. Although Mr. Dooley reminds me that I can drive. I drive all over. At this time, pardon me. At this time, we'll have the posting of the colors. Please stand and remain standing through the invocation and the national anthem.
Colors. Colors. Post. Post.
At this time, I'd like to call Reverend Ed Bender, chaplain of the VFW Post 824, to deliver our invocation.
It's an honor and a privilege to participate in today's service. We have beautiful weather and many folks in good patriotic people. We'll spend the rest of our day remembering and recognizing those who over the last 200 years gave the ultimate sacrifice to make us free and keep us free. I think it's a good place for those remembrances because right here on the battlefield is where our nation was born, the place of the last battle and the big surrender. We are the United States of America. We're different from all the other nations. Our military is different. In all my experience and all of the people that I've spoken to, I feel that we fight not because we hate our enemies, but we fight because we love our country. Our motto is "In God We Trust." And so it is. As a chaplain, I spend a lot of time studying what God teaches us. David in the Old Testament was probably the ultimate warrior. He was one of the greatest. And in his days, as he grew older, he wrote these words in Psalm 144. "Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. My loving kindness and my fortress, my high tower and my deliverer, my shield and the one whom I take refuge, who subdues all my people under me. Lord, what is man that you take knowledge of him? Or the Son of Man that you're mindful of him?" And this is the line that really hits home for me today. Man is like a breath. His days are like a passing shadow. None of us are going to be here for all that long. But while we're here, there are expectations. There's one more scripture I'd like to offer before I pray. And that's from the Apostle John, way back just before Revelation in our Bibles. John wrote 3 letters to the church in his old age. He wanted to make sure we remembered. So he wrote these words, his first letter of the 3, chapter 4. "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God. And everyone who loves is born of God and knows God. He who does not love does not know God, for God is love." And so when I see people who love others, I see God. And so it is. If you want to show others God, love one another as he instructed. The prayer I'd like to offer is not my own. I thought on this day it was appropriate to go back to our first president, George Washington. As part of his inauguration, these are the words of the prayer that he prayed on that day. "Almighty God, we make our earnest prayer that thou wilt keep the United States in thy holy protection, that thou wilt incline the hearts of citizens to cultivate a spirit of obedience to the government, and entertain a brotherly affection and love for one another and for their fellow citizens of the United States at large. And finally, that thou wilt most graciously be pleased to dispose of all, to do justice, to love mercy, and to demean ourselves with that charity, humility, and pacific temper of mind, which were the characteristics of the divine author of our blessed religion. And without a humble imitation of those of whose example in these things we can never hope to be a happy nation. Grant our supplication, we beseech thee, O Lord. Amen."
Thank you, Chaplain Bender. And now, while we remain standing, I ask that we all join together in one voice for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by our national anthem, accompanied by the fifes and drums of Yorktown. I pledge allegiance Please, you may be seated. It is now my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Mr. Walter Zaremba. Walt Zaremba is a York County attorney practicing in the area of estate planning and elder law. In 1995, Walt was elected to serve his community as a member of the York County Board of Supervisors, serving the citizens of the 1st District. He is now in his 6th four-year term. Walt is a veteran of the U.S. Army. He saw duty as a Green Beret during a combat tour in Vietnam. He returned for a second tour, serving as the operations officer of a direct support artillery battalion. A much decorated officer, Walt's commendations include the National Distinguished Service Medal and Purple Heart. He is a graduate of both the Command and General Staff College and the Army War College. He retired from active duty as a colonel after 33 years. Walt was inducted into the Field Artillery Officer Candidate School Hall of Fame and the Keyport, New Jersey High School Hall of Fame. Walt is married to a lifelong Williamsburg resident, Laurel Denby. Walt and Laurel have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Walt Zaremba.
Well, the first thing I want to do is to thank Dan and John and the rest of the Historical Committee for inviting me to this incredible day of remembrance. And I'm distinctly honored to be before you who are distinguished visitors, as well as every man and woman and child in this surrounding. You know, many people have defined the word bravery, many different definitions, but I like the one that a Greek philosopher many, many years ago articulated. It goes like this: the bravest are surely those who have the clearest vision of what is before them, glory and danger alike, and yet notwithstanding that danger, go out to meet it. And so today we honor our heroes, to remember their achievements, their courage, and their dedication, and to say thank you for their sacrifices. We can't help but feel awed by the enormity of what we reflect upon. We stand in the midst of patriots and the families and friends of those who have nobly served too many of whom have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to this country. It's especially fitting that we gather here in a year that marks the 100th birthday of the end of the First World War, the war to end all wars, as we all recall. A war that ended on the 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month of 1917. Now, our service members come from all walks of life, but they share some fundamental qualities. They possess courage, pride, determination, selflessness, dedication to duty, and integrity. All qualities required to serve a cause larger than oneself. Many of them didn't ask to leave their homes to fight on distant battlefields. Many didn't volunteer. They didn't go to war because they loved fighting. They were called to be part of something bigger than themselves. They were ordinary people who responded in extraordinary ways in extreme times. They rose to the nation's call because they wanted to protect the nation, which has given them and us who gather here today so much. Since the first shots at Lexington and Concord were fired and our Revolutionary War began, American men and women have been answering the nation's call to duty. Millions of Americans have fought and died on battlefields here and abroad to defend our freedoms and our way of life. And let's not forget that. Today, our troops continue to make the ultimate sacrifices, and even as we lose our loved ones, more Americans step forward to say, I'm ready to serve. They follow in the footsteps of incredible Americans. The idea for Memorial Day, originally called Decoration Day, arose from the ashes of the Civil War, a war that resulted in the loss of some 620,000 Americans, both North and South, and hundreds of thousands more who were maimed in that war. Through the course of the war, Americans blasted each other's lines with cannon, burned cities and towns on our own nation's soil. Americans locked each other in incredible prisoner of war camps and destroyed whatever connected the North to the South. Homes, schools, churches from Antietam to Vicksburg were victims of that destruction. The war's unprecedented carnage and destruction was on a scale not previously imaginable, and it changed America's view of war forever. Now, from those dark times, it was the families who were honoring their dead who began to envision the light of reconciliation. Although there are different versions of how Memorial Day began, one story goes that the grieving families from both North and South began decorating the graves of their fallen loved ones with wreaths, flowers, and the American flag began to be staffed at half-staff. In one Mississippi city, people decorated the graves of both Union and Confederate troops out of respect for the families of Union soldiers and with the hope that someone would do the same for their loved ones lost in the North. These informal honors led to the first formal Memorial Day observance at Waterloo, New York, on May the 5th, 1866. Congress officially recognized Memorial Day as a federal holiday, not on Monday, but as a federal holiday in 1866. Since then, with each passing year and subsequent conflict, we have continued to honor our fallen warriors. Our nation has awarded many medals to our military, added their names to monuments, named buildings after them, to honor them for their service and bravery. But all of us here know nothing can ever fill the vacuum created by a fallen service member, and no number of medals and ribbons can comfort the ones left behind. At this time, I'd like to ask the service members and veterans of the services who are here today to stand. Please stand. Don't be bashful, okay? We thank you for answering the call to duty. You've made our armed forces the most respected in the world. Now, I'd also like to ask members of families, in other words, family members who have service members, whether they be past and present, to stand. Okay. Please be seated. We know you have lived through difficult times and so very often have had to carry the heavy burden of keeping the home fires burning. Thank you for what you have accomplished in support of this nation and your loved ones. People throughout the country will gather today to remember, to honor, and to pay gratitude to those who have served our country. Our getting together today is just one small spark in the flame of pride that burns across the nation today and every day. It's not a lot, but it's one small way we can honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice so that we can continue to live in freedom and have all of the great things that we enjoy as Americans. Our presence and that of people gathering all across America is a tribute to those fallen troopers and to their families. It is a way we remember. And don't forget to remember those who have fallen. From the soldiers who fought and died on the battlefields of Yorktown, to the doughboys crouched in muddy, stinking trenches of France, to the platoon faced with the unknown of jungles and rice paddies of Vietnam, and to the young men and women who daily conduct combat operations in the mountains of Afghanistan, we remember and we honor them, especially on today. Now, there was a colonel, a captain, and a physician in the Canadian Army who served during the First World War. His name is John McCrae. And he reminds us of the importance of remembrance in his unforgettable poem of a graveyard at Ypres, Belgium, following a horrific battle during World War I. That location has some 360 plus Americans buried there. And I'd like to share that poem with you. Hopefully I can get through it. In Flanders fields the poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw a sunset glow, loved and were loved. And now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be it yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us, who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. Even 100 years later, in the battle that marked the dawn of chemical warfare, we can still feel the pain of the author. And thus, from the strength of those words, the poppy has become a symbol of remembrance to all the fallen brave. We're not done yet, so I do want to thank you for coming out today. God bless all of you. God bless our Commander-in-Chief, and God bless America. Thanks so much. Okay?
Thank you very much, Mr. Zaremba. We will now have placing of the wreaths by the Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 13, and a Comte de Grasse chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for the playing of taps. Please remain standing as Chaplain Bender comes and gives our benediction, and remain standing after that for the retirement of our colors.
I chose to stay with the benediction, the blessing that the Lord gave to Aaron to bless all of the Israelites. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Company. Colors. Retire.
Retired.